Hello and a warm welcome to African Aerospace and Defence TV. I'm Marise de Klerk. Thank you for joining us. With the global need for aviation maintenance technicians growing, the trend of private training facilities has now also reached African shores. Mechanics of, well, a different kind. The expanding global fleet fuels the need for aviation maintenance technicians and is creating a niche aviation industry, as well as a unique training institution.
We had visitors from a number of countries in Europe, another number of operators, including EASA, which is the European system. And they actually saw that the type of school that we have is unique. They were highly impressed also with the quality of the modules that we have.
I did some of my education in the UK, and when I came here, it really was up to that standard. And the lecturers have a lot of experience, the equipment's great, they give you skills to take out into the industry, and they help you get into the industry with apprenticeships and that sort of thing.
This institution seemed to have the best facilities, the best equipment, and the instructors here were more personal than at the other institutions.
Internationally, within the next 10 years, the biggest issue is the fact that the workforce is currently very aged and is retiring, and there is not new personnel coming through the system. So there is always a demand for maintenance engineering technicians, not only in South Africa, but throughout Africa. And the aircraft fleet in Africa is intended to expand for more than 5% per year.
The Air Force and parastatals traditionally trained world-class aviation maintenance technicians in South Africa, but the Safamar Group saw a gap and founded MATA.
And the gap was one in shortage of training facilities to cater for the general aviation AMOs, which is the aircraft maintenance organizations, and they didn't have so much access to the government schools.
South Africa and Southern Africa, the practical training of technicians is to a very high standard, and it always has been, particularly with regards to practical skills, including hand skills. However, the trend locally is to train students to an international standard, such as EASA, so that their training is recognized internationally. That means the students' work is recognized and that aircraft can be brought to Southern Africa for maintenance.
Our students come from mainly South Africa, but we're also very proud to have students from the rest of Africa. For instance, we currently have students from Nigeria, Ghana, the Cameroon, Mozambique, and also Zambia.
I found out that their staff are qualified and they are decent, and the facilities they do offer are world class.
And they come either from school directly.
When I came here to look at the place, I saw that it was situated at the OR Tambo International Airport, and I figured that the school doesn't only give me training as a mechanic technician, but it also gives me the experience to be around the airport as well.
Alternatively, some of them have been in the industry, have built up some practical experience, found that this was an interesting career, and now would like to formalize that qualification through the academic as well as prescribed practical phase. And beyond that, we also offer training for qualified artisans in all the prescribed courses that are required by South African civil aviation as well as international aircraft operators.
We start the apprentices from scratch, doing theoretical training. And after we've done that, we bring them to this section that we are in now, which is the practical training center. That what we teach in the class, we come and do practical on the equipment.
Each student has his own test equipment, it's state-of-the-art test equipment, and the workbenches, which are separate to the classrooms, are excellently equipped. And then, of course, we stay, up to speed with international developments.
And they come to work at a Fly Safair or other company that's got the new generation aircrafts like Boeing's and that. End of the day, that benefits us and it benefits them as well. So for us, that would be definitely a privilege to have these guys.
So we're also busy linking with universities of technology and universities locally and in overseas, where we will actually combine with our training a degree or a diploma so that the guy can be duly qualified and that he will be fully equipped to start his own business in future.
private institutions are expanding as we speak across the world, not just in Africa, but across Asia, Europe and America, to respond to the customers' needs for students.
With the expected need for maintenance technicians over the next 20 years at 19,000, maybe I should also brush up on my maths and get my hands dirty. Marise de Klerk, AAD TV. Despite the windfall of a low oil price earlier this year, IATA foresees a mixed bag of fortunes in this hyper-competitive industry.
We saw already in 2014 a 5.9% rise in demand for air travel worldwide. And we saw passenger numbers rising to 3.3 billion people traveling last year, which is a new record. And at the same time, we're seeing airlines being very cautious in adding their capacity to the market. Globally, they added 5.6% of capacity last year, so you still had demand outstripping supply. And as a result of all that, we saw profits increasing, margins increasing.
And what's the situation in Africa?
Africa's a different kettle of fish. Africa, unfortunately, we are the slowest moving market in terms of demand. We actually saw that capacity was added at a faster rate than demand in Africa. If we look back to last year, we saw that demand grew by only 0.9%, which is the slowest in the world. But at the same time, capacity went up by 3%, and you can't have that. And that meant that load factors dropped into the mid-60%, and airlines' ability to get some sort of profit margin out of that was diminished. Now, compounding the situation in Africa, you've had Ebola, which, although in Africa we all know is relatively contained to Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone, the perception in the key foreign markets is that it's Africa, well, that may as well apply to all of Africa. So we've seen a huge drop-off in travel demand as a result of that.
Looking forward into 2015, there is now this windfall of the lower oil price, and I assume the fuel price then. Will the aviation industry recover?
The outlook that IATA have come up with says that African airlines collectively should return a combined profit of about $200 million this year, which is good compared with 2 years ago where they broke even. And 3 years ago they made a loss of 200 million. So it's a turnaround, but it could be a lot better. What's also a drag on the African market is South Africa's economic slowdown. And that, of course, is going to get compounded now with the worries around electricity supply and how guaranteed that is and how disruptive that's going to be for industry, for output.
What would your advice be for the African aviation industry for 2015?
Well, for the African aviation industry, I think the key thing here is about governments saying we recognize the economic imperative of aviation, of air transport, in terms of helping to drive economic growth and GDP performance. We don't have many navigable rivers, and what we do have is not a lot. We don't have a sophisticated high-speed rail network. We don't have a great road network north of South Africa, and we have long blockages at the main border posts. So air transport remains the most reliable and the quickest way of moving people and goods around markets.
Like in any other niche industry, the specialist aviation media also plays an important role.
The aviation specialist media is absolutely vital because there's a huge lack of knowledge out there about the role and the importance of aviation, both at the level of government and indeed at the level of the passengers who fly. And a lot of the information that's put out there is put out there very inaccurately. A lot of it is scaremongering or simple ignorance about how the actual aviation industry operates. So I believe that the aviation industry per se has a very strong need
for a powerful and independent aviation media, and so do so does general media, because all too often the information needs to be moderated by at least some sense of understanding.
Tell us a little about your publication, SA Flyer, and your coverage. What do you focus on?
SA Flyer, as the name says, is about flying in South Africa, but we need it to be much more than that. So we also have a co-publication which we bundle up in SA Flyer called Flightcom, and that's all about the aviation industry in Africa and to a lesser extent the Middle East. And Flightcom magazine discusses and brings to the fore all the key issues affecting the aviation industry as opposed to the flying business in Africa. So we deal with African airlines, we deal with African defense, we deal with African sales all over, and to that extent we're the leading publication because we're enabled to get sales of the publication across the whole of Southern Africa, as well as distribute the magazine to all major stakeholders, shareholders, influential people across the whole of Africa. It's an exciting market because it's growing strongly, and we're in many senses leading the thrust of a good aviation magazine or publication into that market.
And back to the fortunes of the aviation industry. Ethiopian Airlines once again proved itself as one of the continent's leading airlines by recently launching the only direct Africa to Japan route.
Ethiopian Airlines has become one of the continent's leading carriers, turning profits for most years of its existence. Established in 1945, it has come a long way since its humble beginning and continues to drive innovation with the objective of achieving operational efficiency. It commands a lion's share of the Pan-African network, including the only daily east-west flight across the continent. Well, the airline is certainly shaking things up further in the industry under its ambitious 15-year strategic plan called Vision 2025. For more insight, I'm joined now by the airline's regional manager for Southern Africa, Fasika Bahanu. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Tell us more about Vision 2025.
Well, Ethiopian Airlines has a tested experience because before this we had a 5-year vision plan which was done on 2003 and then implemented up to 2010. Based on this 5-year tested experience, we developed the long-term, the 15-year vision plan. When we develop this, it is based on a tested experience.
Just to unpack some elements of the plan in terms of your vision moving forward, how do you see yourself growing and increasing your footprint on Africa?
Yeah, there are about 5 parameters. For instance, the number of destinations we are flying, the number of routes we are operating, the total number of passengers who are uplifting, and revenue and profit also another parameter. So in by 2025, our plan is to cover about 121 destinations and to increase the number of aircraft to 112, to uplift 80 million passengers and revenue about 10 billion, and profit will be $1 billion.
Are you also looking at diversifying your business?
We have about 7 profit centers. We need a pillar in order to achieve these objectives. For instance, the training academy is one. We have to have a trained pilot, a trained maintenance people, trained cabin crew, the marketing staff. All these are, a result of our training centers. That is one. The other is the catering service, the ground service. All these are in parallel will be developed with a strategy, with a vision that we are going to achieve.
Tell us more about some of the new routes you're undertaking. And in particular, what can sub-Saharan, rather the Southern African region expect?
Well, our commitment is to connect Africans together, to bring them together, one, and second, to give them a way to access the outside world. So currently, we are covering about 50 destinations in Africa, and a lot are on the pipeline. Apart from, I think the Northern Africans, like the Morocco, Tunisia, I think those are the countries which are still pending. Otherwise, mostly the western and the eastern part of Africa is interconnected.
And that's it from African Aerospace and Defence TV. All the best from me, Marisa de Klerk.